All right, guys, chapter 5 of Free to Choose, created equal. This part is called equality before God. When Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, wrote, "All men are created equal," and he was 33 when he wrote that. All men are created equal. He and his contemporaries did not take these words literally. How do you know, Milton? When Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, wrote, "All men are created equal," he and his contemporaries did not take these words literally. They did not regard men, or as we should say today, persons, as equal in physical characteristics, emotional reactions, mechanical and intellectual abilities. Thomas Jefferson himself was a most remarkable person. At the age of 26, he designed his beautiful house at Monticello, Italian for Little Mountain, supervised its construction, and indeed is said to have done some of the work himself. In the course of his life, he was an inventor, a scholar, an author, a statesman, governor of the state of Virginia, president of the United States, minister to France, founder of the University of Virginia. Hardly an average man. So he's a president, governor of Virginia, inventor, scholar, author, statesman, minister to France. The clue to what Jefferson and his contemporaries meant by equal is in the next phrase of the Declaration: endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, like rights that can't be taken from them, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men were equal before God. Each person is precious in and of himself. He has unalienable rights, rights that no one else is entitled to invade. He is entitled to serve his own purposes and not to be treated simply as an instrument to promote someone else's purposes. He is entitled to serve his own purposes and not to be treated simply as an instrument to promote someone else's purposes. Liberty is part of the definition of equality, not in conflict with it. So we're all equal to be free, is what it's saying. We're all equal in freedom. Equality before God. Personal equality is important precisely because people are not identical. So equality, we're all equal before God. Personal equality is important precisely because we are not identical. Their different values, their different tastes, their different capacities will lead them to want to lead very different lives. Personal equality requires respect for their right to do so, not the imposition on them of someone else's values or judgment. Jefferson had no doubt that some men were superior to others, that there was an elite, but that did not give them the right to rule others. If an elite did not have the right to impose its will on others, neither did any other group, even a majority. Every person was to be his own ruler, provided that he did not interfere. I had to turn the page. Every person was to be his own ruler, provided that he did not interfere with the similar right of others. Government was established to protect that right from fellow citizens and from external threat, not to give a majority unbridled rule. Jefferson had 3 achievements he wanted to be remembered for, inscribed on his tombstone. The Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, a precursor of the U.S. Bill of Rights designed to protect minorities against domination by majorities, authorship of the Declaration of Independence, and the founding of the University of Virginia. The goal of the framers of the Constitution of the United States, drafted by Jefferson's contemporaries, was a national government strong enough to defend the country and promote the general welfare, but at the same time sufficiently limited in power to protect the individual citizen and the separate state governments from domination by the national government. But so able to protect, right? Strong enough to defend the country and promote the general welfare, but at the same time sufficiently limited in power to protect the individual citizen and the separate state governments from domination by the national government. Democratic in the sense of widespread participation in government? Yes. In the political sense of majority rule? Clearly no. So democratic, yes, in the sense of widespread participation in government. And everybody has power. The government works for us, not us for the government. In political sense of majority rule? No. Similarly, Alexis de Tocqueville, the famous French political philosopher and sociologist, in his classic Democracy in America, written after a lengthy visit in the 1830s, saw equality, not majority rule, as the outstanding characteristic of America. In America, he wrote, the aristocratic element has always been feeble from its birth, and if at the present day it is not actually destroyed, it is at any rate so completely disabled that we can scarcely assign to it any degree of influence on the course of affairs. The democratic principle, on the contrary, has gained so much strength by time, by events, and by legislation as to have become not only predominant but all powerful. There is no family or corporate authority. Remember, in France, there was an aristocracy. America then exhibits in her social state a most extraordinary phenomena. Men are there seen on a greater equality in point of fortune and intellect, or in other words, more equal in their strength than in any other country of the world or in any age of which history has preserved the remembrance. I want to go back here. In the political sense of majority rule, no. Or an aristocratic rule where it's ruled by like a monarchy. Tocqueville admired much of what he observed, but he was by no means an uncritical admirer, fearing that democracy carried too far might undermine civic virtue. As he put it, there is a manly and lawful passion for equality which incites men to wish all to be powerful and honored. This passion tends to elevate the humble to the rank of the great, but there exists also in the human heart a depraved taste for equality which impels the weak to attempt to lower the powerful to their own level. It also exists also in the human heart a depraved taste for equality, which impels the weak to attempt to lower the powerful to their own level and reduces men to prefer equality in slavery to inequality with freedom. Whoa. Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. You hear what he said? This passion tends to elevate the humble to the rank of the great, but there exists also in the heart a depraved taste for equality, which impels the weak to attempt to lower the powerful to their own level and reduces men to prefer equality in slavery to inequality with freedom. It is striking testimony to the changing meaning of words that in recent decades the Democratic Party of the United States has been the chief instrument for strengthening that government power with that government power. It is striking testimony to the changing meaning of words that in recent decades the Democratic Party of the United States has been the chief instrument for strengthening that government power which Jefferson and many of his contemporaries viewed as the greatest threat to democracy. And strengthening that government power which Jefferson and many of his contemporaries viewed as the greatest threat to democracy. And so Democratic Party not like always sort of been anti-freedom, you know. And it has striven to increase government power in the name of a concept of equality that is almost the opposite of the concept of equality Jefferson identified with liberty and Tocqueville with democracy. Of course, the practice of the founding fathers did not always correspond to their preaching. The most obvious conflict was slavery. Thomas Jefferson himself owned slaves until the day he died, July 4th, 1826. He agonized repeatedly about slavery, suggested in his notes and correspondence plans for eliminating slavery, but never publicly proposed any such plans or campaign against the institution. If the declaration he drafted had either to be blatantly violated by the nation he did so much to create and form, or slavery had to be abolished. Little wonder that the early decades of the Republic saw a rising tide of controversy about the institution of slavery. That controversy ended in a civil war that, in the words of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, tested whether a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal can long endure. The nation endured, but only at a tremendous cost in lives, property, and social cohesion.